and welcome to a very special edition of the Full Force News Burst, brought to you by GeneralsJoes.com. With me is your host, Chris Action Foreskin McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. Joining me on today's burst to discuss the recent news of Paramount and Hasbro's movie roadmap is Paddy, the fighting Irish Lennon. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this news burst. Paramount CEO Jim Gianopulos took the opportunity to discuss details of Hasbro and Paramount's movie deal at CinemaCon 2018 recently, explaining that in May I flew to the Pawtucket, Rhode Island offices of Hasbro, the toy and game company behind such Paramount franchises as Transformers and G.I. Joe. Hasbro CEO Brian Goldner wanted to accelerate his company's growth in the film business and have a greater creative voice in the films based on its toy and game properties. The company's quickly struck an exclusive 5-year production and financing deal. Projects include a G.I. Joe reboot, as well as movies based on more obscure Hasbro properties such as Mask and Micronauts. Goldner said he expects Hasbro to make 2 live-action movies and 1 animated film a year with Paramount. An interesting quote from Brian Goldner regarding Jim Gianopulos stated, "Literally, he's a database of what works and what doesn't work in movies. Jim exudes a level of optimism and an understanding of the business and a positive attitude that's very infectious." TFW 2005 also put together a rough roadmap of what the Hasbro cinematic universe could look like up until 2022. So let's discuss this development now. First off, Paddy, what are your thoughts regarding this deal? Because there was a lot of talk about, obviously there was that issue with the Chinese company that basically caused a bit of a problem with the Transformers, right?
Yeah, Paramount had a financing deal with a Chinese hedge fund last year, and they were in talks to get more money from that hedge fund. And then essentially Hasbro stopped making good movies. Paramount stopped making good movies and had a very bad year last year financially.
Yeah.
The Star Trek movie, Star Trek Beyond, nobody went to see that in the box in cinema.
Yeah.
It did quite badly, quite poorly, and actually probably lost them quite a bit of money. The Star Trek one.
Yeah. Even
though I hear it's actually fairly decent.
I liked it. It's fun.
Yeah, and then the Transformers movie didn't break. They were expecting it to make $1 billion, and it did not. Is the short answer.
God knows why.
So this Chinese hedge fund towards the end of last year decided maybe we don't want to make movies with you, Paramount, anymore.
Yeah.
And so they pulled back and they were going to offer quite a bit of financing. You know yourself, these sort of movies cost a lot of money. A typical Bay Transformers movie costs somewhere around $165 million to produce, and then something similar to market it. You would generally spend whatever you spend to make the movie, you'd spend something similar in the marketing and promotion of it.
Yeah.
So you're talking, $300 million put into a Transformers movie, for example. And the way cinema works is you don't make a whole lot of that money back on the takings in the box office. The first weekend of your film being in the cinema, you'll get most of that money. So if you have a $100 million weekend, you'll probably get about $80 million of that back to yourself to offset against the $300 million you just spent.
Yeah.
But that percentage goes down every week it's in the cinema, essentially down to 0. And then you're kind of hoping, most movies when they're released, unless they make $1 billion, you're probably not going to make a profit on what you make in the cinema, because you'll make if you make $600 million in box office, you'll only see maybe 250 come back to you, and you've spent 300.
Yeah.
So you're hoping for DVD sales, you're hoping for streaming rights, you're hoping for whatever else comes afterwards, what brings you into making a profitable movie and making a return on your investment. And essentially, you want to make that money back as quickly as you can. You don't want to have that $300 million out there for years without being paid back to you.
Yeah.
So when they saw that the movies, there was a bit of a wobble in their box office last year, these Chinese guys, these Chinese investors kind of said, maybe we'll wait, and they pull out of their deal. So Hasbro seems to have taken the opportunity to come in and say, well, actually, we have quite a bit of money. They had turnover of $5.2 billion last year. They can probably find $100 million to put towards the budget of a Transformers movie.
Down the back of the couch.
And that is and that is essentially what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're starting to fund their own projects now. And in return for giving, Paramount some money to make these things, Hasbro want a greater say in what those things are. Like, a big problem Hasbro have had with their previous movies is that you take G.I. Joe as an example. Paramount made the movie, told everybody they're releasing it one particular month, and then took the business decision and said, we're actually releasing it in 9 months' time.
Yeah.
And by which time Hasbro already had the toys out on the shelves. And that probably sank G.I. Joe as a property for a couple of years.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, retailers were sitting on wave one product for 9 months for a movie that wasn't coming out.
Yeah, yeah.
So this gives them presumably a little bit more say over when things are released, how they're released, and also to kind of match what happens in the movies with what they've got planned for the toys.
Yeah.
So that is essentially what they've agreed. One interesting thing that that the quote says there is, projects include a G.I. Joe reboot.
Yeah.
Reboot. So what we've been thinking about, what we mentioned last time when we started hearing stuff about this, that they were going to just essentially start over, that's confirmed now for G.I. Joe.
Yeah, which is good. I think it does need a reboot. I think you can't really go in there doing the same thing they did with Retaliation in kind of like the old soft reboot. It sort of makes some sense because it, you know, follows on, but then it's completely, it's like you can't do that. Like you have to kind of wipe the board clear and you have to start again because they're not very good movies. And they like you mentioned, I hear this all the time, they made lots of money. They did, but they also cost a lot of money. And they didn't make as much money as someone, you know, than a lot of movies that are successful and out there all the time. You can make your money back, or you can make a little bit of profit on a film, but where is the incentive then to make more of those movies if you're only just getting by?
Well, this is it. If you need a reasonable return on investment. You can't be making a G.I. Joe movie and spending $300 million and then only making $5 million profit.
Yeah.
You could have just put the $3 million in the bank for 2 years and got $5 million profit. That is essentially what it is. It's all about return on investment. And it's something even when you had Daryl on and he was talking about the G.I. Joe toy line in Toys R Us, was profitable. It just wasn't profitable enough.
Yeah.
They presumably could have taken that $1 million they spent making a Toys R Us exclusive line, put it in the bank for 18 months and made more money. So obviously the management of Hasbro are going to be like, well, we can't be spending money making G.I. Joe toys that only give us $100,000 in profit. We'd be spending money on Transformers toys to give us $200,000 in profit.
There's a percentage tipping point, isn't there? Like you need to be making a certain percentage of what you're spending in order to, you know, be able to go, right, this is worth doing, and it's worth doing again and again and again.
To satisfy your stockholders, you have to, or else Brian Goldner and his buddies are going to find themselves out of a job fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So, you know, other than that, there's not much in that announcement. We kind of knew this was coming.
Yeah.
We knew there was a 5-year deal coming up. We knew there was financing coming from Hasbro for it. Like I said, it gives them a measure of creative control, so they would probably pick, you know, writers they want to work with, directors they want to work with, and so on. And you know, they will tell them, this is an idea we have for Transformers. You know, I can see them coming and saying, well, a Transformers movie is going to have Optimus Prime in it because he's our main character.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they're probably going to, for a G.I. Joe movie, I imagine they will state, these are our big brand characters, and you need to make sure that they show up in the movie. Like you're not going to see Downtown or Female Salvo.
How dare you?
You're not going to see Downtown or Female Salvo in a
Lightfoot.
Joe movie.
Oh, mate.
Or Lightfoot.
There you go. That's a buddy movie right there. Downtown, Tiger Force, Hardtop. That'd be amazing.
You're not going to see the obscure G.I. Joe characters in a movie. You're going to see the big names, which means the next movie will have Snake Eyes, it will have Cobra Commander, it will have Deathstroke,
Scarlet.
and it will have Scarlet and Duke.
Yeah. Let's talk quickly about the roadmap that TFW put together, because obviously based on what Jim Gianopulos said, the Paramount CEO, he said that the kind of ideal, the roadmap is that it's going to be 2 movies and 1 animated film every year. Now, we've got the dates for a number of the films already. We've got the Transformers Bumblebee movie in 2018, and obviously that's December 21st, so obviously we don't know whether they're going to be able to squeeze 2 movies and an animation out this year, obviously. But going into 2019, they don't actually have anything like written down in terms of dates. It's 2020 where we see,
because if you wanted something released in 2019, it would have to be before it being filmed already.
Yeah, totally. So maybe we're talking 2020 onwards anyway. But of course we've got G.I. Joe locked in at March 27th, 2020. We've got
2019. Just the animated movie is almost certainly going to be the Transformers movieverse prequel that Boulder Media are working on at the moment. That's been in production for about 8 months now. So I imagine you will see they're doing a prequel to the Bayverse movies. They've been hiring staff for a CGI movie linked to one of their most popular franchises, and one of the job descriptions was, "We need people who are good at designing robots and cars." So for character designers. So that's probably that 2019 animated movie, I'd say, is almost certainly that.
Cool. So we could be getting something in 2019. That's interesting. So the 2020 lineup, we've already got like G.I. Joe locked in March 27th, 2020. We've got Micronauts locked in October 16th, 2020. Now, bear in mind, Micronauts is probably going to resemble the animation they're working on as well, right? Would you say that's probably a good bet?
Yeah, I wonder if. Yeah, I imagine it would be. It would have to be if they're doing an animated series to release next year or later this year. So I imagine it will have to link into that some way.
And again, that leaves an untitled Hasbro Paramount animation in 2020, which...
I would say that is almost certainly another My Little Pony movie.
Oh, cool. Okay.
They had one this year. It was widely successful for what it needed to be. So they will almost certainly have a sequel to that out as soon as they can. So I would imagine that'll be your 2020 movie.
Awesome. 2021, they've obviously locked in July 23rd, 2021 for Dungeons & Dragons. Interesting. And then a Paramount/Hasbro event film, October 1st, 2021. That's all we've been told is what that particular thing is. And then an untitled Hasbro Paramount animation, we're not sure in 2021. In 2022, we don't know at all. But what we do have are lots of films that have been announced as in progress or writing stage or development or ideas, whatever. We've got Mask, which has had a director attached to it, oddly before a writer. We've had Visionaries mentioned. We haven't been given any details on that as yet, so that's probably the least likely to happen in this list of 4, in my opinion. Action Man has already got a British company attached to it, I believe.
And a director.
So that's another kind of, that's another one that you can probably say
I could see that being the 2021 movie, possibly.
That's a good idea.
Or maybe if they started production on that like tomorrow, they could possibly get it done for very, very late 2019.
Ooh, that would be tough though, wouldn't it? And it wouldn't be very good.
It would be tough, but if I could see them doing it, if it's a straight up spy movie.
Yeah.
You could possibly, without much CGI, without much science fiction stuff in it, if it's just going to be a hour and a half long spy movie, a la, a James Bond,
Johnny English.
Johnny English. They could probably get that. They could probably get that done in 18 months, and they've had a director assigned to that for a few months now at this stage. So they're probably well into planning on that. So that could possibly squeeze into 2019.
And I'm actually really excited to see what they do with that. That's one that I think if they kind of keep it close to the comic release, the IDW comic release, which I really enjoyed. It was only a 4-parter, and then it was like nothing. It was kind of just dropped into the Revolution series, like hardly really utilized. And I thought the character was fantastic. I thought it was funny. So, if they kind of went along those lines with it, I could really see that working. Maybe do it like the actual Action Man dies at the beginning and he has to take over. The
other thing we know is that, toy production takes about 2 years.
Yeah.
So, from concept to getting it to into stores. So they would probably have already had to have been started working on a 2019 movie toy-in line already.
Yeah.
If it was going to be coming out.
Yeah.
Unless it was, like I said, towards the end of 2019.
Yeah. Another tentative one on that list is ROM. Of course, that's been kind of, we've heard that Zach Penn's been attached to that as a writer. So that would probably, that's quite far back in terms of development as well. But you'd probably argue is probably still, in terms of progress, is probably ahead of Mask, even though Mask has got a director and so on and so forth. But where would you see ROM fitting in there, if at all?
Who knows? ROM and Visionaries are a big unknown because although, like we've mentioned before, they've attached a writer to ROM, that doesn't really mean a whole lot. Writers get attached to projects all the time
Yeah.
to submit a draft, and then it goes out to another writer to submit another draft, and then they kick it around for a while. And so it's hard to know. I mean, these things can spend, years just getting scripts, and then, a director likes this script, but he wants changes.
Yeah.
And then they change it and they decide, well, actually, maybe I don't like this anymore. And then they go looking for another director. Movies happen, they're not something you can really predict
Yeah.
really well. And even some of these dates they've announced are insanely ambitious.
Specific as well.
That is something studios do. It's a way of scaring other studios away from certain weekends
right.
in a calendar. So you can be like, you, March 27 is our weekend. G.I. Joe, the G.I. Joe reboot directed by DJ What's-His-Face is coming out that weekend.
Caruso, yeah.
So don't be releasing any Spider-Man movies that weekend.
Yeah.
You can take April.
Or we'll postpone it and make it in 3D.
Yeah, so that's just a way of, in the same way that dogs a lamppost, them announcing dates for this sort of stuff is essentially, Hasbro and Paramount a lamppost.
I thought I could smell
to say March 27th is the G.I. Joe date, and stay away from us, Marvel or DC or whatever.
Amazing.
That's our weekend.
Could you see all of these going ahead? Not necessarily whether it be good or bad, but do you see this actually happening? Do you think it's actually going to go ahead? Do you think Hasbro are going to start building a little bit of a, head of steam with this?
I'm going to tell you right now, Action Man will happen because you could probably make that for $30 million.
Yeah.
You cast a no-name actor, you have a few funky gadgets, you have a director who's not really going to break the bank. He's only done a couple of other movies previously.
Yeah.
Action Man could happen. It could happen probably very quickly. Visionaries would cost an absolute fortune.
It would. To do anything close to it, yeah.
All the CGI you'd need in that. Every time someone uses a hologram, that has to be CGI'd.
It would be a Magic Youth Empowerment movie.
Yeah, that would cost so much money. That would probably be the weak link, I would say. Mask as well, to be honest. I mean, they call it an obscure property in their own press release.
Yeah, amazing.
That's another one where that's going to cost an absolute bomb.
Yeah.
Me. And I could see them holding off and doing a whole lot with that. Like the Bumblebee movie that's coming out later this year, that is about half of the budget of the previous Transformers movies. They were told to bring that in for less than $75 million. Which is nothing for a blockbuster movie.
It will be stop motion animation, won't it?
It probably tells you that you're not going to see a whole lot of Transformer mode Bumblebee in the movie.
Yeah. It's
probably going to be very human centric. We haven't seen anything for that other than a trailer. There's been no trailer or anything yet. But I mean,
they showed footage, didn't they, at CinemaCon? Just like I think
they did,
yesterday.
Which is and we should probably explain. CinemaCon is essentially a private convention for cinema owners in America. That is when it's kind of like Toy Fair for cinema goers, cinema owners.
Yeah,
where they basically say, here are the films we have coming out over the next year or two. We want to hire your screens to show it in March 27, 2020, and the cinema owners decide, I like this. I think we'll sell lots of tickets. I give you 2 screens on the weekend of March 27, 2020, so you can show G.I. Joe movies. It's essentially pre-selling. It allows the movie studios to pre-book their the theaters they're going to show it in.
Yeah.
So it's like a trade show for people who own cinemas. So that's why a lot of the stuff doesn't get leaked. A lot of the stuff doesn't come out here. It'd be kind of usual that they would show, if a movie was coming out, say in the summer, they would probably have a preview screening of it.
Yeah.
For cinema owners now to try get some hype, or try convince them to give a few more screens to the movie and do a few more showings every day. Or they would do like a 20-minute sizzle reel of, here's the first 20 minutes of our new Transformers movie.
Yeah.
See what you think. Get excited for it, and will you please make sure that you have lots of screenings on the first weekend, because that's when we're going to make our money. So again, it's another one of those events that 5 years ago you and me would have never have heard of what went on inside it.
Yeah. But
now with, social media and everything, everybody finds out what's going on.
Everyone's like describing every single scene of every single trailer that comes through and like live streams and stuff. It's like next level kind of, interior hacking. That's kind of...
like 20 years ago, you didn't know this thing existed, but Indiana Jones just showed up in the cinema one weekend.
Yeah.
And this is the same sort of thing. So you can take a lot of what's said in it with a pinch of salt, because a lot of these things aren't locked in yet. I fully expect that at least 2 of the movies, and not 4 movies at the bottom there, won't happen anytime soon. Yeah. Because, like I said, I think Visionaries would be far too expensive.
I think a lot of it counts on like the success of the previous ones that come out and so on and so. I mean, if they do well enough, they can almost bankroll some of the bigger kind of, more ambitious films. But I agree with you. I think that a few of those are probably not going to happen.
The one that's interesting is that Paramount Hasbro event film. When DJ Caruso was approached to do a pitch for G.I. Joe about 6 years ago, he said this in interviews subsequently, when he was promoting Triple X, the most recent one, which was released last year, he was asked about what his pitch was for Transformers. And he had said his original pitch, which Hasbro turned down, was G.I. Joe Transformers.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if that Paramount Hasbro event film is G.I. Joe Transformers.
That's a really, really, really good shout, Paddy, and that would be very interesting indeed if they even did attempt that.
Because if you think about it, it's the only one that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the only crossover that makes sense.
As an event film, because it's the only one that will have had 2 movies out already.
Yeah.
They'll have had a Transformers Bumblebee movie out.
Yep.
They will have had the prequel
animation.
The Transformers animation. And they will have had a G.I. Joe movie 18 months before that.
Yeah.
Now, we know that Bumblebee movie is the end of the Bayverse Transformers.
Yes.
They've said they're not doing any more in that timeline. So I wonder if after G.I. Joe in 2020... is Caruso going to be told, right, it's G.I. Joe Transformers for you, and you're reintroducing the Transformers alongside your pre-existing G.I. Joe team?
Wow, I would be down for that, just to see what kind of crazy would come out of it, But
I think that's kind of the natural place to put them, to be honest.
No, it makes a lot of sense.
And they have a little bit of a backstory there already. It gets the Transformers introduced again. You don't really need to introduce the Transformers in their own movie. We don't need another Transformers origin story.
No, you're right. Yeah, totally.
They're robots from Cybertron and they hate each other. Let's fight. Like, that is
amazing.
People know what that is.
Yeah.
So they don't need to do a whole lot of introduction. And a G.I. Joe Transformers crossover movie is probably the most exciting thing they could do.
Yeah, totally. I agree.
Nobody's going to care about the Mask and Visionaries crossing over or Rom and Action Man crossing over. But people would give a care about G.I. Joe Transformers.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and I think the fact that it is an event film, they're almost hinting that it's going to be something a bit special. So I totally agree with that. And they have been trying to almost, or they're trying to figure out the success jigsaw that is, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I definitely can see that being something they have to try in order to create this universe.
Caruso said that they turned him down because they thought his concept was too ambitious last time.
Right.
Because, nobody crossed over 2 big properties like that before. Because they already had a couple of Bay movies out at that stage.
Yeah.
But they were making bank. The first G.I. Joe movie had come out. Yeah. And he was asked what he would do with the second one, and he said Transformers G.I. Joe. And they said no, it's too soon.
Plus, I think Bay had too much control over that anyway, and I think I think
so as well.
He wanted to kind of make that his own and keep making it his own, and then he got to the point where he just didn't want to let it go, and I think that it's soiled it for me a little bit, really, the whole Transformers universe, Bayverse anyway.
Whether half of these will happen, I don't know. I mean, global warming is a thing. We might all drown in the next 2 years because of melting ice caps.
Yeah.
But it's fun to speculate, I guess.
Anyway, yeah, so again, we do love to speculate on this show, and we just wanted to kind of talk through a little bit of that roadmap.
Well, there's nothing available at retail, so we have to speculate, really, don't we?
We constantly have to speculate. Anyway, that's it for this instalment of the Full Force News Burst. Thank you to my wonderful co-host, Paddy Lennon. See you next time, and as always, Full Force. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of these platforms with feedback, questions or to say, who do you think you are? A serious operation now? No, not even close. Look out for more of these news bursts that we are posting on the Facebook page from now on. Full Force.